Hello guys, in this video we will take a look at how to scaffold API backend with Node.js and Express. Modern Node.js application will require the following things: Typescript, code linter, for example ESLint, code formatter, for example Prettier, testing framework like Jest, continuous integration, Git, GitHub, and continuous development like Docker. Well, without further ado, let's get started. We created a folder API service and opened it in VS Code. Let's initialize the application. We will run npm init-y, and I will create package.json file for us. Now we need to install the dependencies. We're going to be installing Express, Morgan to log our calls, and a course. All right, and then we also will need a few dev dependencies. As you can see, those dependencies are for TypeScript mostly. There is ESBuild, ESLint, Jest, NodeMon to restart the server, TypeScript, ESLint config Prettier, and .env CLI to load environment variables. And we're going to be installing them as a dev dependencies. In the root of the project, let's create ESLint rc.js file. We'll do the following. We'll create a module.exports, the root true, and it's going to extend ESLint and use the Prettier. We'll have a environment for Node, ES6, and we'll have parse options, ECMA, version latest, source type modules. We'll put some overrides. All right, then we're gonna have tests, so we put env for the Jest, and that's it. After configuring ESLint, let's configure TypeScript, and we need to create tsconfig.json file in the root of the project. I'll use the following, right? We'll put a schema display, and we just go and put all this compiler option, right? Our output directory will be dist, the root directory src. Right, so the resolution is node, and all the skip check, and it's going to exclude node modules, and it's going to include the src folder. Now let's create Jest preset.js file. Also in the root of the project, we'll put Jest preset.js file. So let's start again, module exports, the root, so the transformers, the extensions. So we're going to be ignoring certain patterns, and we'll use the preset TypeScript Jest. Now let's create .env files. So the first file we're going to be creating is .env, and we put node environment development, and the port will be 3000. So the next one, we're going to create .env.example, and we put the same information in there. Finally, we'll create a .env local that we will be using when we're running Docker containers, and here we'll just put node env as production. Now let's create src folder in the root of the project. That's where we're going to put our source code, and we're going to start with a server.ts file. Right, first we're going to import Morgan course, and we're going to create server. We're going to import it from the Express. We'll disable xpowered by header in the response. We'll use Morgan only in the dev. We're going to use the Express URL encoded body and also express.json, so the JSON body can also be parsed. We're going to use course, and after that we're going to create a couple of routes. First will be health z, right, and it's going to respond okay true, and we're just going to also return the environment, so to see which environment file is being loaded. And finally, next one, we're going to do another route, get message, and the parameter will be name, and the response will be a JSON with a message hello and the name that was passed in the parameter. Finally, we're going to return the app. Next file we need to create is index.ts file, and in this file we will import the server that we just created in a server.ts file. So let's import that create server function. We're gonna check the port, right? If port is not specified in the environment variable, we'll use 3001. We're gonna do create server, call create server function, and we're gonna log out that API is running on the port. In src folder, we also going to create __tests__ folder. In this folder, we'll put a tsconfig.json file so we can write the configuration for the tests. Also, in tests folder, we'll put server.test.ts file, and let's import supertest. We'll also import create server. We'll do describe block, and then we'll put the first test that the health check returns 200. I'm going to create server, hit the health z endpoint, and we'll expect that we'll get 200 and the body okay will be true, right? The next test will be that the message endpoint says hello. Right, we're going to use a super test again. We're going to hit endpoint message, and the name will be Jared, and we'll expect 200, and also we'll expect that the body will contain message hello Jared. Finally, we are going to update package.json file. So we'll need to create or update scripts section. So we're going to put build, and we'll be using tsc. Then we're going to have a clean, right? And at this clean, we'll just remove the dist directory. We'll add a dev. So this is, we'll use .env to load environment files. Then it's going to use nodeman, and it's going to execute the command node ESLint register, and we'll use the index.ts file. So it's basically going to compile Typescript on the fly. And here we also going to put the E flag that will watch for a Typescript file, and then the nodeman will restart the server. The next command is lint, so it's basically tsc no emit, and it's gonna run ESLint on a source folder with the TS files. And finally, our last command is test, so it's gonna run Jest and with the flag detect open handles. The next section we need to add actually is Jest. So, and we need preset.jest preset.js. Okay, let's test if the code is working. Let's do yarn dev, and we got a message that API is running on port 3000, and that's what we specified in .env file. Now, let's install REST client extension, the VS Code, if you don't have it installed. After you install it, you can just go back to the root of the project and create api-test.http file. So let's start creating a couple of the GET requests. Now let's try making requests to make sure the things are working. All right, we got a response okay, true, and environment is development. And if we hit message endpoint, we're going to receive the message hello world. It is very likely that in production, the code will be deployed in the containers such as Kubernetes or ECS. So let's create a Docker file. All right, we'll import from Node 18.4 Alpine, and we'll use the APK lib6 compact, do APK update. So we set working directory as app. We'll copy everything that we have and run yarn install. We're gonna run yarn build. So now we're gonna get another image of Alpine and use it as an installer. Again, use the APK and then update. Now we'll create a working directory as app and copy from the builder, the first one, the dist folder, right? So, and package.json and yarn.log file will install production dependencies. So because after we build it, we really don't need anything else. All we need is our dist folder. Finally, we're going to get another image of Node 18 Alpine and set it as a runner. Again, create a work directory as app and add a user group, and we'll create a user express. And from installer, we copy the app folder again, and then we're going to just run index.js file in a dist folder. In order to run the application inside a container, let's create a docker compose.yaml file. Right, we'll put a version 3, the services we call API service. env file we will use .env.local, and remember the environment there is production. Container name, we'll call it also API service. Build, just a context, we're just going to build it from the root. We're going to say restart always, and we'll put ports. The port will be 3000. That's what the application will run in the container, and it will map to our local machine as a 3001. Now let's run a Docker Compose file. So we'll put the following. Docker Compose, and the file will be Docker Compose YAML. Project will be called API service, and we're gonna put it up and will be in a detached state. All right, the container started. So now we can go back to api.test.http, and since we said that the port will be 3001 for our local machine that will map into 3000 inside the Docker container, we can update our request and put localhost 3001 and see if it's still working. And yes, we got a response, and like you can notice right here, the environment is production, so it's taken from .env.local file. And then we can check hello world or message world or word, and the response is also there. We can also break down the containers, right, to putting docker compose down command, right. It's gonna stop the API service and remove the containers. Finally, we need to initialize Git and commit our changes. Let's go ahead and create .gitignore file in the root of the folder, and we're gonna ignore node modules. I also like to ignore .vs code folder where my settings are, and we'll ignore .env file and .env .local. So we'll just provide only .env example for the people to get easily started with the environment. Now let's run git init command to initialize Git. And now let's do git add, git commit, put a message initial commit. After we pushed our project to GitHub, we realized that we forgot to exclude the dist folder from tracking. So let's take a look how to fix it. In order to exclude dist folder from tracking, we need to do git rm-r-cached dist. After this command, the dist folder got removed. Now we need to open gitignore and add dist folder to the gitignore. Now let's create a commit, git add, git commit, and we'll put a message removed dist folder from tracking. And indeed, after we do that, we see that the dist folder is darkened. So now we can push our code to GitHub, and the dist folder will be removed. This is how you create API backend in Node.js with Express. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.